These are the tools you'll need to replace your speed control unit. 2 bits of braid to hold your brush springs back, your 8mm socket, extension and ratchet, just a hammer just to knock it backwards but use the wooden end, solder, pair of pliers to do a bit of cutting, a Phillips head to take the hood off, a soldering iron to do the soldering, and some tape just to tape the ends up. Right, first of all, remove the lid. Now the speed control, which is damaged, lives down in the housing at the bottom. These are the 3 wires that come up from the speed control. Disconnect that, and disconnect that. Remove the plastic covers off the top. Bend the top so they're straight so they go down the shaft a bit easier. Remove this screw that holds the head onto the shaft. Right, just wiggle the head, lift him off. Tilt the shaft up, lay him back, get a piece of string, tie it around the shaft, round the release handle. The part we need to replace is housed inside this skeg, so we need to remove the skeg. We'll remove this anode. Just give it a quick tap. Take out the 2 screws. Just remove your anode. Right, next step, most importantly, put a bit of grease on that thread. Behind here are 2 seals, and as you pull this up over the thread, we don't want it to scratch the seals. 8mm socket ratchet. There's one of your bolts. Now you'll notice they have a washer that locks into there and they have a rubber seal. Just check that and make sure it's not damaged. Right, remove both your bolts. As you're undoing your second bolt, if your nose cone starts to drop down, which is not often, just keep your hand under it to make sure it doesn't fall on your feet. Swimming on his side like that. You can lock your depth collar off. That'll hold him. Right, just give it a little tap with the wooden end of your hammer and slide it back till you hear it click. So what you're now looking at is the armature, which is actually inside here, but the spring-loaded brushes that run on this, which have now dropped down between here and there, which would have been the clicking sound you hear. So what we've got to do is get a little tiny screwdriver, just prise them out and just rest them on there. It's very easy to do. They'll just naturally rest on there themselves. Then we can remove the rest. So just lift up the brush and just move him back a little bit. Then get the bottom one. Sometimes it's a bit fiddly. Got him first go. Just move him back. As you can see, it'll move back. Then just keep sliding him off. Now the little white, that'll may stay in, it may drop out. It's only a cover over the seals, just goes back in later. Just pull on your wires and slide everything off. Just be careful of your seal. He just stays back on there. Right, then you can remove your armature. Now, if you haven't pulled one out before, you'll get a shock. They're on 2 dirty great big magnets and they're quite hard to pull out. That's what you're left with. Be careful that doesn't fall off. That stays on there. This is the bit we need to replace in here, so we'll just pull the wires out and we're ready to go. Now these are the springs that hold your brushes out. The brushes have actually popped out, but it doesn't really matter. Just get your springs out, put them to one side. We need to remove the brushes plate, which is this item here, from the actual housing and the speed control. So we'll just undo the 2 screws. So to remove it, 90% of the time it's just a matter of pulling on it and it'll come out. If it won't come out, turn it over, get your small screwdriver and just poke it through that hole. You'll feel a little bit of resistance, both holes. Just give it a light tap and it'll fall out. There's the 2 seals I was mentioning beforehand. You can see how the grease has gone around the outer rim of them so they won't damage in any way. First we need to unsolder the brush block off the old speed control. Get it nice and hot. Just give it a shake like that. Same with your negative. Get it nice and hot. Give it a shake. Just give your solder a whack so you've ended up with holes. Get rid of your old speed control. Right, this is what your new speed control will look like when you receive it. Your negative and positive wires. Take your strippers. Just give him a few mil on either end. When your hands are clean, and clean only, just twist the ends like that. Now on the outside of the old speed control, you'll see there's some white grease either side. Just get a knife or a razor blade, scrape a bit off. Try not to get it on your hands. This is a heat sink grease that dissipates heat. And just smear it just on there a little bit, and the same on the other side. Doesn't have to be caked on, so long as some goes on. If there's none on your particular stuff or it's had water through it, you go Repco, it's about $10 for a little tube of it. Make sure you wash your hands after you use it. Alright, time to put the new speed control in, so it's only a matter of just lining it up. There's a couple of grooves down in there. Push down on it. If it's a little bit tight, which a lot of them are, you will need to get a hammer and a screwdriver or a punch, but just punch on the sides. Right, time to solder him together. So with your wires, the best way to go is your little coloured wires. Just go up the side of there, up through there, and bring your black wire down behind it, and your red wire will come across. So that's what it's going to look like in the end. Doesn't matter which one you start with first, just push him through either hole, it doesn't matter, neither a negative or positive. Take your solder, if you've got solder you know how to use it, so I won't tell you. Get it hot, just let him cool. Get your negative side, poke him through, push him down. Okay, next we've got to secure our brushes plate, so make sure none of the wires are jammed up under here or under the other side. Just push everything down. Put your first little bolt back in. Now they don't have to be that tight that they'll snap, it's only just nip tight. Okay. Now the next stage is the two springs that we had earlier. One goes in there and one goes in the other side. Now these force your brushes out and make contact to the armature. The easiest way to do it is get a bit of braid. Just make yourself a hangman's noose. 1, 2, 3, because it's near impossible to get them back over the circlip that was there on the armature. Little hangman's noose. Your brush is a spring locator on the back. Just sit it in there, push your brush back, stick him over the top and tighten him. And that'll hold your brush back in position. Same with the other side. 1, 2, 3. Right, there's your brushes in place. Next step, make sure you grease your O-rings. Inspect them first. It's very rare you find a crook one. If you do, you'll need to get one. Don't put anything in the bush. And the same one's your one down the bottom. Make sure you don't use copper-based grease in a saltwater environment. Right, next step is we're going to thread it through the centre of the shaft. Like before, bend those straight. Get yourself a little bit of tape and just go around there and round there, and just leave one exposed for the minute. Now we're back at the head of the motor. We're going to thread whatever you've got, a piece of string, piece of cable, down like this so we can pull our wires back up. Because no matter how hard you try, it's near impossible just to push them up. Just poke him through. Right, pull him out this end. Make sure he comes out the short end, not the long end. Just wrap him round like that. Get your tape. And he's ready to pull through. Just pull him through. Next step, put the armature in. Hold this up out of the road, your skeg. As I said before, there are 2 big magnets in here and it'll take your finger off if it gets half a chance. So just get it to there and let it go. You can now reassemble your skeg. So just push him on there. Till he gets to about there. You'll need to then pull the rest of the cables through. Right, just pull him through. Just leave yourself about this much gap. Just about thumb thickness or finger thickness. Get your thumb. Push on the armature as hard as you can. Push your armature through like that so he sticks out a fair bit. Then just wiggle your skeg on. You can see it's gone up past the circlip that was there and it's sitting where it should. Pair of pointy nose pliers, just grab hold of your 2 bits of braid, pull one off, that'll release the springs, take the other one off, and that will release that set of springs that side. Now the important thing is now, when you take your thumb off, just push through with that so that they don't separate and click back. Walk up to the head of your motor, pull your cables tight. Time for the nose cone to go back on. Can't go up and down, it's got to go sideways. You'll notice that there's two big fins, so your two big fins go sideways for your screws to come through. So just locate that, give it a wiggle, and everything's just gone together. Make sure your skeg is straight up and down, not poking off either side. Get your bolts, just put them through. Greased first, there'll be grease on your little O-rings. You'll feel them fight, you might have to wiggle them a little bit to get them started, like that. Just tighten them up. Now, don't tighten them enough that you'll snap them. They're only just over firm. The most important thing is to make sure that the hexes have all locked into the hexes on the skeg. So the hex on your little washer that was under the rubber, make sure it is locked in on the hex on the skeg. Get yourself a dab of grease, stick it on there, get your little white bung, push him in. Sometimes they'll go in, sometimes they don't, they just sit a bit proud. Your anode screws, don't put grease on the anode. The anodes are designed to rot, to stop electrolysis. Just tighten them up. Let's undo our rope, tilt our motor back down. Undo our tape. Right, we're going to put the head back on now. Make sure the pointy end is facing the prop. Slide your wires through, lower the head carefully. Get yourself a screwdriver and just wiggle him through to make sure the hole hasn't moved. In this case it has, but we'll just find it like that. Right, the next thing, and probably the hardest, is to put this screw through and without pinching the wires. Now they're thick wires, so they're not that easy to pinch. So if you just get it started like that, just make sure that if it stops, you stop. So what you might have to do is just fiddle with these wires, find the screw and just push them to either side. Put your nut on. Our rubber caps just bend out positive and negative back to right angles. Rubber cap on him, rubber cap there, reconnect it, reconnect that one. Making sure they're tight. Take your 4-pin plug, make sure he goes on properly. Put your lid on. Just get your little screwdriver and just carefully poke him back up there to seal. It'll only go in a few mil, and that's done.